Upgrades.
So, hey everybody, this is Jorge giving you a quick and exclusive interview with the writer and director of one of my favorite films from the 2025 Tribeca Film Festival. I have Mr. David Verbeek here, and we are talking about none other than The Wolf, the Fox, and the Leopard. And for those of you who were at Tribeca, you can already know that the buzz around this movie was beyond amazing. But I am just so happy to be here with you today. So, David, thank you so much. And yeah,
Thanks for having me.
definitely want to just jump right into it a little bit and ask just a couple questions with you. So, with this film, one of the things that I found incredibly, amazing was how this story kind of evolved. And you have this fable-like story, where you use a lot of animal archetypes throughout it, and yet it's grounded in this like dystopian future. How were you able to balance between, I guess, kind of like the mythical storytelling side of the house with like the traditional fables, using animals and things like that too, at the end of the day, like the gritty realism of the world at the end of the day, and kind of what inspired this film for you?
Yeah, great question. For me, it all started with the entire concept of the feral child, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. It's kind of deeply ingrained into our culture. You even had, in the Romans had Romulus. We have had several films about wolf children. It's not a new concept, so it's not a new type of stories. Well, so what I thought that I would want to do with it is I wanted to make it contemporary to the world of now and to use it as, let's say, a device so I could and the things that I'm worried about the world that we live in right now. So it's really a way of what's very interesting about feral children is that they're kind of they're human minus the programming, minus the cultivation, right? So you have a fully developed human being, but it's not human on our terms. So that raises, of course, immediately the philosophical question, what is it to be human? I mean, there are so many things and so many emotions, especially, which we consider to be deeply human. But then if you really look at them under a microscope, a lot of them are actually cultivated. So I always had this fascination, over what remains of our behavior and of even our emotions, let alone our thoughts, if we take away the nurture out of the natural part of the human being. That for me was the starting point that I wanted. I had this question of like, if this would occur today, uh, who would we be as a society, and who would people from our society be now to tell someone like that what they need to be like? Because we live in a world that is so polarized now, geopolitically, and of course, with the huge climate concerns, which is also a geopolitical issue. It's also a debate. I mean, for different political parties. There are so many different truths out there nowadays, and what it all has in common is that we all we are beings that operate on storytelling. So and I think that's what the feral child would have most difficulty adapting to, about exactly that, about the fact that she needed to, if when she enters the human world, she needs to craft an identity for herself, which is in essence a story of who she perceives herself to be and who she is and what others tell her that she is who she is. And that in itself is unnatural to her because when she was living in the forest with wolves, it was a very hard and rough and even cruel existence in many ways. But she never had to tell a story. She never had to pretend anything. She never had to lie. She never had to, live in a realm of concepts. Everything was just very naturally the way it was. There was just hunger and pain and cold and warmth. And that's what a lot of the films that I've made in the past also have always been about. They're always about how far removed we've become of the natural condition of existing simply in nature. So that's how this whole thing came together. It was really the question of like, okay, so there is this concept of the feral child, a human being without our programming, and what would that look like in exactly today's, politically polarized and with the climate catastrophe insight, what would that look like today? How would we educate her, and who would educate her, and how would she react to all the different versions of reality that people would tell her
Yeah.
about the world, but also about what she is and what she means to the world?
Yeah, no, and that kind of leads perfectly into my second question, which is Jessica Reynolds just wow, like phenomenal. I was completely speechless seeing her from start to finish in this film. And obviously there's so much to her character, from each kind of part of this movie, from the forest to the oil rig to the real world. Um, it was just fascinating seeing how, you know, at the end of the day, like how your vision came through with such a complex character through all those phases. And I guess I kind of wanted to know how was it working with her and portraying this image that you were looking for? Because when you break apart this movie in all the different phases of it, it's remarkable how different she is throughout all of them, but at the same time, how in the back of it, you always see that primal like instinct, that primal child that she was in the beginning of the movie, where she was just part of a pack. So definitely would love to hear a little bit more about how was it, working with Jessica, and then just how was it directing your vision with her? Because at least from someone watching the film, I haven't seen acting like that in God knows how long, in the sense of being so believable in each phase, which was just spectacular.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've also, and I've said that in many interviews already that I think that if she doesn't win some kind of award for this, I think that's basically a crime. I mean, she more than deserves it. No, she was just unbelievable and unbelievable to work with. But that was also almost like a prerequisite for making this movie because I knew when I wrote this script that if I didn't find someone who would really, really be able to put this on her shoulders and really, really go all the way with this and also go into extremities with this, I might as well not make the film. So it was a long casting process. And that took about a year in several countries. And finally, yeah, we found Jessica, and that was just from that moment on. Really, I knew like, okay, we're actually going to make the film. It wasn't the moment where the script was at a certain level, or the moment that we completed the financing, which of course are all necessary for being
Yeah.
able to actually make the film. But it was really the moment where we found her and where she had done screen tests that I was like, okay, Thunderbirds or go. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, also the way I set this up was a bit unconventional because it wasn't just like a scripted scene that I had people do. It was more like there was a whole range of exercises and questions at first. And then there were some scenes, yes, but then there were also improvisation exercises, and I would match people together, like also that the parents, of course, are very important. So I really took a long time to really examine the candidates, and there were many candidates, and a lot of people they did see the incredible challenge, but also the opportunity of acting out a part like this, because what you get to do is you get to build up a role, a person, a character from the ground up in all these different stages. So in a way, that's really like a young actor's dream in a to be able to work on that, to do that. So it wasn't like like there were a lot of people that wouldn't want to do it. I mean, we had a lot of people that really wanted the part. But the questions that I had were like, how are you with animals? Have you had dogs in your life? What about your physical experience? Have you ever done a lot of acrobatics, or have you? What's the condition of your body like? But also, how do you relate to dogs emotionally? What part have they been in your life? Because as soon as she came through the process, she had to actually go workshop with a real pack of wolves just outside of Hamburg, Germany, where there was a family living with a wolf pack, and we managed to have them do the film with us. So I mean, it's and that was also kind of a moment of truth, when she first would go into the wolves kennel. And would she be too afraid, or would the wolves not like her, especially? But all of that was that it kind of came from the first choices of like how are you with dogs? And Jessica had a few dogs in her life, big dogs, and one of them had just passed away 2 years ago, and she was missing that dog very much, and it was very emotional to her. So, and she had a very athletic background with a lot of aerobics, and when she was young, and but most importantly, she was just when she read the script, she kind of just knew that this was for her because she just got it. There was this kind of commitment on a very deep level that she had from the start, and it was just apparent. So she was very hungry for this role, and actually the film also got postponed once. So we found her, and then the budget fell through, and I had to do part of the pre-production elsewhere. So I had to so there was like an extra 4 month or something, and that was actually really a blessing in disguise. Of course, when that happened, it was nerve-wracking because we didn't know for sure whether the film was ever going to get made. That's how it is. I mean, you've been working on something for 10 years, and then suddenly the budget falls through, or part of the money withdraws, and you're like, okay, well, I might have just wasted 10 years of my life working on this. It might never happen. And it's horrible, really. I mean, but I mean, in hindsight, we really needed that extra 4 month because that's when she started to, or that's when it turned out that she had much more time with the wolves, when she had more time with the movement coach as well. And we did a lot of meditation in the forest as well, because what you say is like what my approach was, that I knew that I was, I do a lot of work with actors. I do a lot of improvisation. I do a lot of work in a lot of workshopping, so a lot of time together before the shoot and going through the scenes and really talking about what the scenes are about on a deeper level. But I knew with her, exactly with her in this part, I knew that I just needed to get her into this state of really relating to her animal nature, and that we did, like I said, through meditation, through a lot of yoga training, a lot of physical improvisation in the forest, a month before the shooting, actual time with the wolves, all of that. And I just needed to get her in that state, and then the only thing that I would have to do was direct the other actors around her, and she would just have to react to that from that real state.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in the movie. It's like, it's not like, okay, well, you're gonna react like this and you're gonna growl like this. No, it's you just go into that state, and the others will do that. And then later, of course, when we go through the film, and the film chronologically gets, she gets more and more of a character. Then we start to talk about, okay, what is there now? And what is there now? What is there now? And what is it that you really feel most resentful about? And where does that come from? And how are you hurt in your pride? Because the way I see the film, and Jessica as well, is that what I just explained, that how she is, um, how it's somehow always unnatural for her to tell stories because she's never had to. What happens throughout the film is that it's almost like she gets, it's a bit of a heavy word, but I think it's appropriate, psychologically. She almost gets raped repeatedly by all these characters, uh,
Yes.
because everyone is like forcing a narration, a narrative onto her, and this is who you are, and this is what you mean to the world. And then later on with the book and all that, it's like in the end, you really have to get the audience into this moment where they really instinctually feel like she has to do what she does at the end, because it's the only way to liberate herself. And what she does is such an extreme, and such also, such an extreme and hard to explain thing. But that I won't say what it is, but it's that's where we had to work towards, what that came from, where that anger came from, where that betrayal came from. And once that was all clear, there was surprisingly little that I really had to do, except for just like practical, constant directions on set, but just of a very practical nature. We really had the film figured out emotionally very well before we set out to do it.
No, and you can feel that throughout. Something that was so captivating to me was basically the way this film was shot. And I kind of relay it in almost a three-phase approach where you have like the forest phase, the oil rig phase, the real world phase, and then it almost loops itself back to the forest phase. And I guess with you, working with a cinematographer, how do you get to the point where I guess almost like what you envision in your head and what you're writing down in this, you creating this world, how do you make sure that that vision comes out accurately? How you are envisioning it this whole time? Because all these sets are so vastly different. And it's not like you're going from an apartment to a superstore and like it is very different each one. Like the oil rig itself, like that alone, phenomenal job, like just being able to film on a rig like that. But how was that, process, and collaborating and making sure that how some of these shots you were envisioning were captured just as they should?
Yeah, I mean, that's the work. That's really the homework, and that takes a long time. That's a long time in pre-production. I was working with Frank van Ede again, who is, well, arguably one of the best cinematographers around, especially in Europe. And we had worked together already once. on a film called Full Contact, and that had been a really good collaboration. And we kind of knew that we could that together we could, talk through the scenes in a way that we could get this really precise way of observing the characters and also going through different phases of a story, because Full Contact also is something that goes through very distinct phases. So we had done something like that before, but I mean this one was more complicated. So in the collaboration between me and Frank, it was more like, okay, we were very confident from the beginning, and we were just going to take something one step further. Um, but I mean, it really comes together in many stages, I would say. I mean, first you talk about the script several times. You talk through the entire script several times with your cinematographer, and there is first like a vision of like, okay, what is the style? Is there one style throughout the film, or is it a style that evolves, or does every segment have a total different style of its own? I mean, there's so many choices to make there. And that's also something that you start working on with your production designer and so on and so on. But that's one like general layer where you work through, but then you go into the scenes, and it very often happens also in those months. It will take like maybe like 3 weeks to a month to really, even before you have your locations, to go with the cinematographer through the shots and make a rudimentary shot list, where it's like, how are we going to translate what is on paper here into frames, and how long is every shot, and what's the rhythm of it, and how does it come together? And then another very big thing, of course, is where you really only really lock the shot list is when you find the locations and you work with the production designer, and you really start to figure out the physicality of it and how it's going to play out. So those are like, already three stages of doing your homework, of crafting and recrafting what the vision is going to be. And that's something that you do together. And if you're like me, if you're a director who also writes his own screenplays, that's actually a wonderful and finally less lonely part of the journey, because you've been writing this for a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, because through the financing you have to constantly adapt it to different film funds. Like, you might, I mean, this was finally like a 7 country co-production, and all these countries, they have film funds, and they all have an opinion about the script, and you have to take it in, and you have to, in order to get the money, you have to, change something, or so it's a very long process. But when you finally start to really make it with your crew, then all these talents start to add up, and like a different synergy starts to arise. And that's like one of my favorite parts. I mean, I'm the kind of director, I really, really, really like the pre-production, but especially the shooting. Really, like the more people that are involved, that are like thinking together on something, I really like the process of the shoot. Just specifically talking about the oil rig, I mean, also, a lot of the choices that you make, and a lot of the creative insights that you have, are usually born out of limitations. So it's almost never like, okay, well, you can do whatever you want. We're just going to use ChatGPT and Midjourney, and type something in, and we get whatever we want. That's not what real filmmaking is about, and that's probably going to change in the future. Right now, on the other hand, I also think it's probably not really going to change as much as a lot of people think, because that's not how the process works. The
Yeah.
way the process works is that you get to something through collaboration, and through and a third coordinate is the limitation. So there's a lot of limitations of things that you simply cannot do, and things that are only possible in this way and only on this location. So that's the identity of the film. It's the friction between the vision and reality. That friction, that's where the magic is, where a film can become actually really good. So that's just for me that's just how the process works. So in the example of the oil rig, we could not shoot the whole thing on an oil rig. It was simply impossible. It's also, it's there are security limits if you have an oil rig out on the sea. Everyone has to wear helmets all the time, including the cast. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Like so there is these very real limitations there, and in order to tackle that, you have to be very creative. So we shot a part on a real oil rig, which was actually docked at in on the Dalmatian coast, in the Pula harbor. So we shot some of it on the real oil rig, the outside, but then actually you could see that it was like, on that there was a coastline there, so we had to, Photoshop that away in post. But then there that was just one part of it. So that was only like 3 days that we shot things like that. And then we also shot in an abandoned power station to get the interiors of it. But then there was also stuff where we wanted to be like more like on deck, and or like when they're in their garden, and we wanted to see real vast ocean amongst, in the background, and real sunlight hitting them. And we shot that on a ferry. So we rented a big ferry boat also in Croatia, and we shot on the deck of the ferry, and also the canteen of the ferry. We also refurbished that. So it was a combination of an old abandoned power station, a ferry, and a real oil rig, all in Croatia, that made that midsection of the film.
That's awesome. No, it definitely, I will say this is one of those films where it's so much more than just the characters, but the locations themselves feel like another character throughout the whole film. Now, I know, obviously this premiered at Tribeca this year. It had so much buzz afterwards, and I guess for me, after watching it, I would love to know, you being the director, the writer, what was like one thing or two things that you want the audience to take away when they watch this film? Because it's so it's just such a perfect work of art. Like
Thank
I
you.
literally was just shook after I saw this for a few days, just thinking about it and talking to some of my peers about it. But would love to know from you, like, what are some of the, I guess, key nuggets that you wanted to make sure that the audience takes away from watching this film?
Well, I'm happy to hear that it kind of shook you up, because that's kind of exactly what I was going for. I was very conscious that I was making a film about the relationship that we have with nature in this particular time that we live in right now, where so much seems to be at stake, and where, we might already be past the point of no return with that. And so I think if you make a film about that now, in this particular moment in human history, I don't think that you should make a film which is, again, like, okay, well, let's put ourselves in the center of the story, and let's have a hopeful ending where, through teamwork we can overcome it, and in the end humanity is going to work it out and we are the heroes. I think exactly the point that we need to make now is that, what we need is a spiritual awakening. Actually, we need to realize that we are not the center. We're not the center of the world, of the natural world, of the universe. We just exist in it, and nature doesn't really care that much about us, probably. And it is going to do whatever it is going to do, even though we are, the best kid in the class, and we have all the good intentions, and we've done our homework, and we're going to, now really put on our good boy hat and, do everything well. And, it might already be too late regardless. And it's not to spread a message of doom, not at all. But I feel it's necessary at this moment to kind of shock the audience in out of, their state of, we are the center, and, it's, if nature, if our relationship with nature feels hopeless and feels like the world is, gonna explode, then well, let's just change the narrative about it. No, that might be exactly the problem, that we're always creating a narrative and putting ourselves in the center. And that's really, also what the main character is undergoing. She represents nature, and she's raised by wolves, but she's not a wolf. She is a human being, minus all the bullshit, right? So for me, I just wanted to create an experience where we get to know her, and where we on one hand sympathize with her and realize that she is basically being raped by us, and at the same time also where we also realize that she's very dangerous, and that we actually also, that what she deserves really is like, we ought to have a sense of awe to her, because she is, a being that is much bigger and complicated and even mystical. And like the wolf, I mean, the way the wolf looks down on Dylan, before he's going to be eaten, I mean, that is just a splendid, beautiful creature. I mean, a wolf, the depth of the eyes of a wolf, the calmness of a wolf. That's really like a spiritual presence. And I think that moment of surrender also, where Dylan just realizes that he's not going to get out of this, and when he just looks at the wolf, I mean, that's basically already the film in a nutshell. Basically, the whole film is already told there, but now we're just going to go, layers deeper after that. But so. So yeah, I mean, if you ask me what I wanted the audience to primarily feel, I think that's it. I want, this film needed to be kind of a slap in the face, and it needed to also be a film um, that bewilders you, and after it's over, you should just, you should just have this kind of sense that that you just saw all these layers, and you need to process something, and it's not over when the credits roll. That's then what starts then is like, what the hell was all that about? And but it was, I hope that people find it intriguing enough to really to dig deeper, and think about it and talk about it.
No, that's so beautifully put. No, I 100% agree. And um, I am thoroughly fortunate to be able to talk with you, and to be able to see this film when I did see it, and just to be able to just pick at your brain a little bit more about this, because this, like I said, this film was phenomenal. Nothing short of amazingness from start to finish. I know we're running out of time here real quick, but definitely just want to tell the audience, everyone out there, if you have an opportunity to see this, go see it. Go check it out. Don't second guess it. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. This is one of those films that I can wholeheartedly say comes once in like a lifetime, where you watch some of these films that just impact you, and this one will do that. This one will start the conversation as soon as you're done with the film. And David, once again, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, and for making just such a phenomenal story. Like this is just a beautiful story from start to finish.
Thank
um
you, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, no, no. But as always, guys, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.